There's a line on the ground that'll take you anywhere. If you want to go somewhere in particular, you gotta follow the right line. But there's a line on the ground most places, and we're gonna follow that line to whatever we might find, though it might not be just what we were expecting. There's just no point directing that line on the ground. If you let it, it just might take you anywhere.
Live from KPFT 90.1 FM, this is Houston EV Hub, featuring members of Houston Electric Vehicle Association and the Ready When You Are players. I'm David C. Lowy. Our producer is Colin Lowen.
Morning.
And we have a variety of guests joining us remotely, I hope. And once we find them, we'll get them on the line. But we were out and about this week with some special events for Earth Day. This is our Earth Day is Every Day presentation. Is Dave Hansen there on the remote call? Well, I don't hear. Nope. I guess they're just getting in there now. But there are three questions that are commonly asked us every time we meet with people.
Yes.
And it's usually, how far can you go with an electric car? How long does it take to charge? And how much does it cost to charge? Can you answer to that?
Well, I can give some general answers. Every your situation may vary, but charging at home, if you charge at home, which most people do, and that's by far the cheapest, best way to do it, a full charge from zero might run 6 to 8 hours. And the thing is, that's on a level 2 220-volt charge. The thing is that most people don't charge from zero. Like when I get home and I'm under 100, I charge. So it probably only takes a few hours, but I'm not paying attention because I'm asleep. How long does your phone take to charge is kind of my question. We don't really know, or I certainly don't pay attention. As for the second question, how far can you go? That is dependent on your particular EV, but it's typical now that you're around the 220 to 300 ballpark, depending on your EV and how far you charge up before you go. And I should add that when you're traveling, it's a different situation. You'll be using fast chargers on the way to, say, San Antonio. There's like 5 or 6 of them, and the fast chargers will give you a 80% charge in, say, 30 minutes. Depends on the particular your car and the fast charger and so forth. But it is that's enough time to go have maybe a bite to eat and do your check-in and maybe do a little shopping. It's God knows I need a stop every 2 hours anyway. So even if I wasn't charging. And the final question was, what's the most common questions? How much does it cost to charge? So at home, it's usually about 10, 12 cents a kilowatt hour, which is about $5 to $10, depending on how much battery you have. On the road, I'm seeing numbers like 35 cents a kilowatt hour to 45, something in that variety. And that means you'll spend about $20 to $30 for a full charge. And what you're paying for is a little bit of convenience in that the fast charging infrastructure and so forth is there. So it's those are probably the most common questions that we get. And I think one reason David's bringing this up is because we just did this yesterday at a sustainability day at America's Tower.
And on Saturday, we were at Discovery Green for their Earth Day observations. It was a tremendous event, a lot of interest, and we passed out a lot of information. Had a lot of young people interested because they were attending a robotics competition from all over the world, and so they got a chance to talk with us about electric cars, and they're excited about it.
Yeah, that's a fun group, I have to say. I've done it in the past.
All right. Well, we have our guests who have joined us now, and we're going to be joined by Akua Debrah, who is an expert on mining and sustainability in those practices as it relates to electric vehicles and other electronics. And we have Robert Rolnik, who is developing an app to keep track of the availability of alternative forms of energy and how we can use that knowledge to decide when best to charge our cars. But we have a caller. Bernard is calling us from New York City. Hi, Bernard.
Hey, David, how are you?
Well, great. It's good to hear you again. I know we kind of gave you short shrift last week, so...
I just have to tell you, I'm going to have to give you some short shrift because I got to go move my car at half past.
Oh, okay. Well, you're all right.
And it's not an electric car.
Well, that's unfortunate, but I understand you had a chance to look at some luxury electric cars and were surprised at how cool they were.
Yeah, they were very cool. But I don't really want to talk about them. I wanted to complain about electric bicycles.
I know. That's a pet peeve of yours because you like to go biking in New York on the trails, but there's too many e-bikes now, right?
Well, I mean, first of all, most of them are going way too fast. And the speed limit is like 20, and they're going 30, 40 miles an hour. They got them souped up. Some of them are like really big. I mean, there's no difference between them and they are motor vehicles, and there's no difference between them and motorcycles.
Yeah.
Some of them are motorcycles on the bicycle paths.
Yeah,
I don't mind them.
I've tried some of those. I got a chance to ride some when they were demonstrating some here at Rice University a few years back, and Colin, our producer, has one. They're useful. I mean, if people are...
Oh, sure, they are useful, and they're very seductive. I'm tempted to ride one.
They're great for commuting. A lot of people use them for that.
Yeah.
But they're also great when you're going up hills and you need some assistance. So I understand.
I understand all that.
Yeah, I know. But what I think the answer to your problem would be legislation, because obviously those trails are meant for regular bicycles and pedestrians. What do you think?
I think the horse left the barn.
What do you think, Colin?
Well, my bike does not do 30, 40 miles an hour. It's only assists me. So if you start to pedal, it'll give you a little assist, which you can go further.
Yeah.
Right. So I like to think of myself as a hybrid bike, not a motorbike.
And Colin does about 5 miles a day on his, but a lot for
Right, but my complaint is with these ones. I mean, they're only supposed to be going 20.
Right.
And they're built to only go 20, but they're able to, fool around with the wires or whatever.
Yeah.
To make them go faster than that.
Yeah. So it's a safety issue, and you'll see signs some places saying no motorized vehicles. I would assume that might apply to those.
Yeah, and they're completely ignored, those signs.
Well, is that New York City or is that everywhere?
That's New York City. I don't know about everywhere.
Okay.
New York City is everywhere.
Yeah. Well, that's the place to be because you're there. Bernard sells art on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I mean, if you make it here, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah. You're top of the heap. Okay.
Yeah.
Great talking to you.
I'm about to break into song, but I won't.
Next week. Okay. Bye, Bernard. All right. An old friend of mine and a talented street artist for over 30 years in New York City.
Nice.
So here's a little trivia for people listening to encourage you to call in at 713-526-5738. Push 2 to talk to us. We want to hear your questions and comments. But this time, I'm asking the question, what was the best-selling type of car in the United States in the year 1897. So call in with the answer. Not only will you win bragging rights if you get it right, but we'll send you a page from the script of Fun with Zip and Zap. I
Wow.
mean, who wouldn't want that? But be sure to leave your information. Best thing would be an email address for us. All right, so we're getting ready to go into our program, and we have with us Robert Rolnik. Just one moment. We'll get to Robert. There's going to be some music. Hello, Robert. How are you?
Fine. How about you, David?
All right, doing well. Please introduce yourself for us. You have too many titles for me to remember.
I am Robert Rolnik. I am the CEO and founder to WindEverest. I have been an engineer, a lawyer, and a pilot in my various prior careers, and now I'm a startup founder in the electric vehicle and renewable space.
All right, and I understand you're developing an app that would be useful to electric vehicle drivers. Can you tell us about that without making too much of a commercial?
Of course. So I'm building something called the Carbon-Free EV app, and it informs the EV drivers when is the best time to take a charge on their car so that they can activate more renewables, particularly wind and to some extent solar. One of the things that's little known about our Texas grid is that for some hours, typically at night, you will have idled wind turbines that just have nowhere to send their electricity.
So I'm one of the beta testers, but I suggested one feature that you had not put in thus far, which was how to change our passwords, because I'm always forgetting mine. So I noted that you have that on your list of changes to make.
That is true. I'm putting in all kinds of new features over the week. I expect a new beta release later this week.
So how does your app track the available renewables?
So the app gets its data directly from 3 of the regional transmission operators, of which ERCOT is one of them. And of course, it gives so much detail down to the hour for 7 days about how many megawatts it expects on the wind turbines. This is a very wonky number. It's always expressed in thousands of megawatts. And so I distill that down into something that's fairly simple, like a numeric score. In some incarnations, it's been a grade.
And then how do we utilize that as an EV driver?
So you open the app. You'll see what the forecast is for tonight, as well as the next 4 or 5 nights. And based on it being perhaps a strong wind night with a score of 5 as the top of the scale, you would pick that as a night to charge because they're idling wind turbines on a night like that. On other nights, you might have a score of 2 or even 0. Those would signal that we have a very little wind, and you might want to hold off and just get your battery a little bit more empty for those windy nights.
And as this is our Earth Day show today, how are we going to have a greener Earth by using your app?
So my app will activate wind turbines that are idled. We have 40,000 odd wind turbines here in Texas. If 1,000 of those are idled for an hour or two, to me, that's a tragedy. If we could just shift our electric charging load to those wee hours of the morning when the winds are in surplus, that means those cars will less likely charge off of the coal and natural gas. So it winds up being, if we could scale it, something on the order of tens or hundreds of gigatons of carbon dioxide that could be avoided.
Well, this sounds tremendous. I apologize in advance to our guests if we seem a little abrupt. If callers come in, they take priority, but we're going to get back to you with the discussion with our other guest, who we're going to introduce in just a moment after this brief musical interlude. Coming up right now.
We dig, 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 dig in our mine the whole day through. To dig, 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 dig is what we like to do.
It ain't no trick to get rich quick if you dig, dig, dig with a shovel or a pick.
In a mine, in a mine, in a mine.
Hello, Akua Debrah. Please introduce yourself and tell us what your expertise is and how it might relate to electric vehicles.
Okay, thank you so much, David. My name is Akua Debrah. So I'm a sustainability and mining consultant and an academic as well, with backgrounds in critical minerals and resource governance. How it ties in with EVs is I teach courses in Houston here on mining, energy, and sustainability with regards to securing supply chains when it comes to the minerals or the raw materials that are needed for the manufacturing of these electric vehicles.
And how dependent on rare earths and other substances that are in your field of expertise, how dependent are electric vehicles on those?
Very, very dependent. So if you are to compare a gas or an ISO, this is internal combustion engine vehicle with an electric vehicle, in terms of the raw materials magnitude, it's in the order of 6 times for electric vehicles when you are manufacturing them at the manufacturing stage compared to your gas vehicle or your ICE vehicle. The lithium, in terms of the battery makeup, we typically would have different battery chemistries, but most of them would be within your lithium framework. So lithium is critical, highly needed in batteries. You also need your nickel. You need rare earth elements in terms of your permanent magnets that go into your electric motors for EVs. So we need a lot of these minerals. However, where there are sources where the problem really lies, a lot of the countries, developing countries where we get a lot of the critical minerals from have weak environmental standards. So we are in a sense sourcing minerals to feed into a transition where the back end of it we have severe environmental impacts, i.e. emissions, deterioration of whole forests that are destroyed or stripped in terms of mining for nickel, similar to rare earth elements. It's problematic, but unfortunately that is how the supply chain structure is globally.
So I suppose the goal would be to develop alternate materials that are not so devastating to the environment, to animals, and especially to the human beings who are there trying to extract it from the earth. So we're going to have you talk with Robert Rolnik in a little while. I want to remind our listeners, please call in 713-526-5738. Push 2 to talk to us, and you can answer that trivia question. What was the best-selling type of car in the United States in the year 1897? But right now, it's time for fun with Zip and Zap. And playing the part of Zip this week will be me. Playing the part of Zap will also be me. Playing the part of the stranger will be me. Happy Earth Day, Zap. Why is that cloud glowing, Zap? A glowing cloud. Well, I guess it's that silver lining they're always talking about. I don't think so. Look, some kind of saucer is coming out of it. I think it's the saucer that is glowing. Oh, Zip, you're always imagining things. Not this time, Zap. Look, it's coming closer. Now it's hovering just above the ground. A ladder is coming out, and someone is walking down. Honestly, Zip, you're ruining a perfectly good Earth Day hike with all this malarkey. Excuse me, Zap, but I think that person wants to talk to us. Very well, let's talk to your hallucination. What has happened here? The last time we visited, the air was clear and blue. There wasn't all this noise, and there were so many more animals back then. What have you done to your planet? Can't you do anything to help yourselves? Why don't you answer him, Zap? Well, you see, there are so many cars that emit fumes, have hot, noisy engines, and, well, oh, you tell him, Zip. Well, we couldn't help it, but we drive an electric car, and it doesn't do those things. Why doesn't everyone drive electric cars, then? Our spaceships only use available energy derived from dark matter. You have the sun. Why don't you utilize that abundant resource more? That's a very good idea. Zip, let's look into having solar panels installed. Then we could charge our car from that, besides just powering our house. And we'll cause even less pollution. We certainly will. Good. Give that a try, but don't make me come back here. All right. Well, thank you to our players.
Yeah.
And we're back with Robert Rolnik and Akua Debrah. Do you have questions for each other? Please.
Yes, we do.
Help us
I'll
out.
let Robert go first.
Go right ahead.
So, Akua, you have some understanding of the minerals that go into our batteries.
Yes.
What do you think are the prospects that we could get a good recycling network going, just as we have with the lead-acid batteries that are so common in internal combustion cars today?
Well, I think there are very high prospects for recycling for EV batteries. We just have to dig down to how we construct these EV batteries. It is very expensive to deconstruct them and to pull apart your lithium, your nickel. It is more expensive. Hence, it is easier for manufacturers to then want to source from these interesting countries that have got weak governance or weak environmental governance regimes. So if we put in place, like you have said, institutions, if we incentivize a drive for recycling, not even just of EV batteries, but of our mobile phones, of our laptop batteries, we would definitely enhance secondary mining, because when you're recycling, you're in a sense secondarily mining these minerals from whatever that has been manufactured already. So there are prospects. We just have to ramp up campaigns, drives on the need to really recycle, like we did with lead-acid batteries. One of the reasons why lead-acid batteries were so successful was because of the environmental impacts. We know lead is poisonous. So people really are aware of the need to, okay, if my car is done, or if I want to dispose of my car, I can recycle the battery. We need to have that same kind of thinking around EVs as well as any other electric gadgets that we may have, because most of them have got critical minerals embedded in them anyways. So we need to have some of these drives.
I'm going to interrupt for a moment. We have a special interview that we took just yesterday with one of our drivers at an event. We're going to play that now and get back to you, Akua and Robert. I'm talking with Karen Ates, who is at an electric car event to help with Earth Day celebrations. Tell us about the time you lived in your car for a while.
Well, it was during Hurricane Beryl when all the power was out and the power was taking weeks to come back. We actually were without power for the whole week, 4 nights. Our house was super hot. It was like 90 degrees out where we live, and we had no air conditioning. So we said, well, let's go sit in the car. So we were sitting in the car during the day, and the idea finally came to us that we could put down the seats and sleep in there. So we took all sheets, blankets, pillows, our 2 dogs, and we just put it in the back. And every night we slept there. And I did work during the day from the car using the plug that I have, adapter. And then I was worried about the charging going down, but you didn't even notice nothing was going down. After 4 nights, 5 days, the charging was the same. It was still up to over 100%. It was amazing. I don't know what we would have done without the EV because it was so hot. My dogs were too hot, but it was great that I had that option. I really, really was glad I had my EV.
The great thing about that is you can run the car for days. There are no fumes whatsoever. You're not going to asphyxiate if you're stuck somewhere in the winter and running the heat. Thank you, Karen. It was great meeting you and hearing your perspective on that. We wish we would have thought of that during the hurricane. We're back to Robert and Akua. Akua, how do you respond, or what is your question again for Robert.
Okay. So one of the things you realize with energy demand is with regards to the US, almost 28% comes from transportation, which is like the largest source. And if we are to electrify our vehicles, electrify most of our energy demands or needs, then we'll become so heavily dependent on the grid. So my question to Robert is to what extent can the grid handle so much demand coming onto it if we're all to go the EV way?
And I have to be real quick, Robert. We're down
Yes.
to time.
All right. So summing up, there are about 300,000 electric cars on the Texas grid right now. And by my calculations, just the excess renewable energy, the energy that has no place to go, could supply the energy needs of 1 million cars charging every second or third night. So it'll be a few years before we even see a blip on the radar in terms of the EVs on the grid.
Thank you very much to our guests. We want to have you again sometime. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everyone out there, whatever you drive, we've seen kids in little battery-powered cars. It's amazing. They can already drive. But whatever you drive, please drive safely, because better driving saves lives. We can all be heroes.
There's a line on the ground that'll take you anywhere. If you want to go somewhere in particular, you gotta follow the right line. But there's a line on the ground most places, and we're gonna follow that line to whatever we might find, though it might not be just what we were expecting. There's just no point directing that line on the ground. If you let it, it just might take you anywhere. If you let it, it just might take you anywhere.